Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Phil Monk, founder of We the Undersigned Have a Human Sovereign Right to Cannabis. I'm actually doing this live feed on my personal page this time, which I don't ever do, mainly because I'm having lots of people contact me personally outside of WTU saying, "Oh, well done, you've done it." And not that I think I was the only person trying, by the way. You've done it. Medical cannabis is now legal. It's amazing how many people actually think medicinal cannabis is now legal. So I thought, because I know not everyone likes reading loads of stuff, so I thought I'd actually just do a little live video to talk about it. Welcome, everyone. So I've got printed these pages off, which you may have seen, all over the internet, people sharing them left, right, and centre, celebrating. Yeah, great, we've done it, marvellous. Cannabis is available on prescription. So I thought I'd just have a little overview of, I suppose, my insights. I'm not an expert. This is just my take, reading between the lines and what they say. I'm going to go in the order that they printed them off or when they published them. So we're going back to the 11th of October and the Home Secretary, Sajid David. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if I get it closer. Okay, so that's their rescheduling of cannabis-based products for medicinal use written statement. I won't read it all out because it's a lot of writing. In a nutshell, he talks about how he announced that he was going to be very compassionate and start a two-part review at the look of scheduling of cannabis for related medicinal products under the Misuse of Drugs Act. He's always been clear that his intention was always to ensure patients have access to the most appropriate course of medical treatment. He also stressed the importance of acting swiftly so that where medically appropriate, these products will be available and prescribed to patients. So apparently it's done now, it's ready, it's available from the 1st of November. What I can get from this basically is GPs won't be able to prescribe in the first instant, at least. It's going to start off only specialist prescribers that are registered with the GMC, the General Medical Council. Only them will be able to prescribe, and they generally are specialists in one field, so it'd be neurology, pain clinic, it might be pediatrics or cancer or whatever specialism it is. So basically only people that have a specialist consultant will be able to try and get a cannabis prescription. And that is only, if I can find the sentence here, bear me a moment just while I find it. So basically, in a nutshell, I can't find it. For the first year, while the evidence base carries on, it will remain only specialists can prescribe cannabis. But once the product becomes licensed by the MHRA, then it will be moved to Schedule 2 and will be prescribable as all of the Schedule 2 drugs, which I'm fairly sure means your GP will be able to prescribe it. But that will be for licensed cannabis-derived products. Now, that could be from the UK or it could be internationally from Canada or from Holland. In the UK, as we all know, we've had legal cannabis for years. It's called Sativex, but no one's allowed it because it's too damned expensive. Epidiolex has just been approved over in America by the FDA because they're such a reliable and trustworthy body. And so that's now been launched in America. It's been available for years, just wasn't let out to the British public. Again, I don't know why. So cannabis has been available for years on prescription in medicinal-based preparations, but not to British people. So thankfully, they've decided to let British people have it now. So apparently there's 80,000 specialists in the UK registered with the GMC. So that means theoretically that 80,000 doctors, specialist doctors, will be able to prescribe a cannabis-based product to a patient. What I find most disturbing is it has this little sentence here, Scrapers. Can't find it, sorry. Yes, we have now delivered on our promise, says the Home Secretary, and specialist doctors will now have the option to prescribe these products where there is a real need. As to who determines quite what constitutes a real need is, I don't know. If that is left to the specialist consultant that probably knows nothing about cannabis, that's not going to be very easy for many people. Someone with anxiety, for example, they might not have a specialist consultant. They've got anxiety. They can go to the doctor. They can be put on various antidepressants and all these other drugs straight away, no problem. Doctor, bang, there you go. There's a prescription for it. But they won't get cannabis. because they haven't got a consultant and the GP can't prescribe it, and cannabis isn't recognised for anxiety. So although it does say, another good bit of news, sorry, I'm moving through various different documents, is that patients, so hold on, that's not the right one. This is the only good bit of news I've been able to find in the whole thing, actually. Oh man, I wish I'd kept them all in order. It says that there will not be a limit on which conditions cannabis can be prescribed for. It's saying that, here we go, the new law will not limit the types of conditions that can be considered for treatment, and doctors will no longer need to seek approval from an expert panel in order for patients to access the medicines. That's great news. That's brilliant. Because before it was chronic pain, we had epilepsy, but only for certain kinds, and chronic pain from chemotherapy. They're the only three things that our health executive, Dame Sally, I can't remember the rest of her name, recognised as having enough evidence to support cannabis being useful. So thankfully they haven't stuck to that. That's the only good thing I can say about them, is that they are not limiting it to the types of conditions. However, it is still limited to a specialist consultant. So obviously that is going to limit as to which conditions it will be. So medicinal cannabis won't be available. It'll be a cannabis-based product. Now that could be Bedrocan from Holland, I think. It does say somewhere that cannabis flowers will be available, which is great, because it doesn't mean that you're only going to have Sativex or Epidiolex, which I know from experience, although I shouldn't, are both rubbish. I don't know about Epidiolex, but Sativex it's awful, very ineffective, and the taste and the pain it causes in your mouth is horrendous. So I feel sorry for anyone that has to take Sativex for the rest of their life. That's torture, really is torturous. I even read the research somewhere that they made it taste bad on purpose, because medicine shouldn't be enjoyable. You shouldn't enjoy your medicine, so let's make it taste nasty on purpose. So the decision to prescribe these unlicensed medicines must be made by a specialist doctor, not a GP. These doctors focus on one field of medicine, such as neurology and pediatrics, and are listed on the General Medical Council's Specialist Register. They must make decisions on prescribing cannabis-based products for medicinal use on a case-by-case basis, and only, keyword, when the patient has an unmet special clinical need that cannot be met by licensed products. So if you read between the lines there, right, what that's saying is you've got to have tried the licensed products first. Now, I'll look at my case here, because I started WTU out of my own misery. So I've nearly been killed so far by tramadol, beta blockers, citalopram, and Zomorph, right? They're the drugs that have nearly killed me off. MHRA approved licensed drugs, I'll hasten to add. So these people that are telling us what we can and cannot have, which really fucking makes me angry. These people telling us what we can and can't have already nearly killed us on the drugs that they tell us that we're already allowed to have. So the MHRA approved licensed drugs that have nearly killed me 4 times, they would still say to me that I have to take the other ones that I refuse to take, which would be gabapentin and pregabalin. I hate them drugs. I've seen what they do to people firsthand. It is awful, right? Severely addictive opiate drugs. You miss one dose, you go into full clucking detox, okay? I run out of cannabis. That doesn't happen to me. My pain goes up. I don't go into withdrawals. I don't go into detox. I don't get sick, right? But they would tell me, according to this, right, according to what they're saying, licensed products. Well, I haven't tried every licensed product. I've only tried some of them. I'm not willing to try the others because I don't trust them anymore. They're too dangerous, right? So this thing of only when an unmet special clinical need is there, that's the clause. That's the one that is going to stop people getting cannabis, right? So many people will be turned down from cannabis because of that little sentence. So that's the one I challenge, right? Why should you have to have poisonous synthetic pharmaceutical drugs before cannabis? Now, I could go to my doctor tomorrow, right? They could give me pregabalin and gabapentin and all the rest of it, even though they are controlled drugs, right? And Schedule 1 controlled drugs, quite possibly, actually. They can still prescribe them to me, and they often offer, even though I keep refusing. So why can't they prescribe cannabis? Why do we have to have this specialist who actually doesn't know anything about cannabis. They don't know any more than the GP does. Sorry, this is the other bit. The Home Secretary has made it clear from today's announcement does not pave the way towards legalising cannabis for recreational use. Okay, that's going to be their point, because they believe in alcohol. Actually, they're alcohol consumers, the Tory party and all of Parliament, so they think alcohol is the only drug that you should use, and any other recreational drug apart from alcohol is not permitted. Obviously, I challenge that, actually. You know, why is it only recreational alcohol is allowed to be used? But anyway, forgetting that, we're looking at medicinal cannabis today, right? Not recreational, although there is no difference, because anyone that uses cannabis instead of alcohol is making a health choice, a medicinal health choice. The penalties for unauthorized supply and possession will remain unchanged. Let that sink in for a minute. So let's say, because I've nearly been killed 4 times, I've got real bad pain, they might actually give me a prescription. I've got a very sympathetic pain clinic person. He might, when I go and see him in November, which is after the 5th of November, so it's great, he might immediately give me some, oh, battery running low, some sort of cannabis prescription. Excuse me, I've got to plug in. My apologies. Yeah, my pain clinic, he might actually give me a prescription straight off. He's already tried me. He'll try and support me on the right to grow my own, because the government can't provide what I actually need, and Sativex is a pile of shit. So he said he'll support me on that. So he'll likely prescribe for me immediately. But then that means that someone that doesn't have that, who isn't unfortunate enough to be sick enough to have that specialist, they're still going to get fined. They're still going to be prosecuted. So medical cannabis isn't legal. Medical cannabis is only legal for the few and chosen select that are given authorized permission to use it. That's a big difference. That's a big difference. So this big thing of medical cannabis is legal, it's a misleading. There it is. Government announces that medicinal cannabis is legal. No. Their version of medicinal cannabis is legal, and only to the people that they say can have it. Okay? So it's far, far from over, because you could have someone like, you know, one household, yeah, in one household you might have different people using cannabis for different reasons. For one household, they might have it for pain, and then the same household, they might use it for ADHD, and another one in the same household might use it just because they prefer it to alcohol. Yeah? They don't want to get pissed, but they still want to relax of a weekend or with friends, so they use cannabis instead, right? Legal for the elite, absolutely, Jim. Legal for those that can afford it. So the police could come round and, in theory, arrest and prosecute all the people in that house, unless one of them happened to have a prescription for their cannabis from a specialist that suddenly knows what they're doing. And that's the bit I can't sit with. See, I can't let that sit on my conscience, because cannabis is cannabis. The stuff that the government are going to try and give us, well, okay, that's grown in a laboratory, and it will meet certain criteria, which is the only reason why it counts as medicinal cannabis. So the stuff we've all been using for the last 20, 30, 40, 50, or in Lee Harris's case, my entire lifetime, right, is cannabis. That is still therapeutic, even if they still refuse to see it so. The cannabis I get every day that helps my pain, it's not been given to me by the government for the last 23 years. I've had to acquire that myself. It's still been therapeutic. So why should I be prosecuted because I'm using my own, or from somewhere else I got it from? Why should I be prosecuted just because I'm not using pharmaceutical grade cannabis? And that's what they're going to basically do, is anyone without pharmaceutical grade cannabis is going to be prosecuted. But here's the other good bit. It's about smoking. I find this really interesting. I don't know if you know, like, smoking cannabis under the Misuse of Drugs Act itself, per se, is not illegal. They can't prosecute you for smoking cannabis. They can prosecute you for possession. They can prosecute you for growing and for sharing and preparing, but they cannot prosecute you for consuming cannabis. Whether you smoke it, whether you eat it, whether you rub it on your skin, whether you bath in it, whatever. They can't prosecute you for consuming, utilizing the plant, right? They prosecute us for recognizing the benefits of it, and they prosecute us for then acting out and using the benefits that plant offers. but consumption itself is not illegal. However, under prescription laws, smoking cannabis will be prohibited. So let's say now you've been lucky enough to get a little 5 grams pot of Bedrocan floss, which is basically laboratory grown cannabis from Holland that the government have been, the Dutch government have made available for years. I wrote to our government 4 years ago saying, why can't I have this on a special prescription? Any clinician, any healthcare provider, they have the right to provide whatever they think is in the best needs of their patient, whatever it is. Okay, it's got nothing to do with anybody but them and the patient. However, that's where the GMC comes in. The GMC, as my GP said to me once, Phil, I would prescribe that for you tomorrow, but the GMC will squash me. Okay, so this General Medical Council squashes doctors that step out of line. So I actually could have had a prescription for cannabis way back in 2014, and it would have been for Bedrocan, yeah, which has been available from Holland for years. Okay, but they wouldn't let me because it's got no therapeutic value. Okay, but now suddenly it's got therapeutic value. So what you're going to have to wait for, really, in order for you to be able to go to the GP to get cannabis on prescription for any condition, you're going to have to wait for cannabis goods to be licensed. And that'll take time, obviously. I don't know why. Because the MHRA could have given a license to Bedrocan 4 years ago, and I wrote to them and asked them because the Dutch government wrote to me and told me that they could, and the only reason the Dutch government couldn't do it was because the British government wouldn't let them. I've still got those emails, by the way. So we've had nothing but the British government refusing to move forward with this until they've got their own products lined up through their own little pet pharmaceutical company, which I never knew previously how many politicians are invested in this, and I probably still don't know how many of our politicians that represent us and our needs are actually invested in GW Pharmaceuticals or any other pharmaceutical industry or tobacco or fossil fuels or petrol or any of those industries that are threatened by cannabis. So once those licenses are granted by the MHRA, then they'll be down to Schedule 2, no longer be Schedule 1. So you'll be able to go to your doctor and get a prescription. This isn't over yet, apparently. I mean, it's not over for campaigners, that's for sure. You might get some groups that think, oh yeah, this is great. Medical cannabis is now legal. The government have said so. Do you see how many of your members are getting medical cannabis in 12 months' time? I'm not going to name names for groups, right? But let's just see how many are left. You left me on the battlefield. I'll say that because I am bitter for being left out. When I am a patient. So they reckon it's going to be about. I've applied myself to get onto the commission, the board, to try and put your voices across, because obviously I'm speaking to DWT as well as on my personal page. I'm going to share it through all my groups after as well, to try and get the voice of the 3,000 odd members that have joined me and get your voices across. So that will be the Layman's Board Committee for NICE, which is the National Institute for the Commission of Care and Excellence or something, which I don't have faith in these organisations because they've nearly killed me 4 times. So the idea is that the ACMD, which I don't know if you remember, just a few months ago, the government announced its new ACMD, right? That, oh, we're listening to our ACMD. All of a sudden, the government listens to the ACMD. It didn't listen to it when Mike Barnes was on it, 2016, when the ACMD in 2016 presented the Mike Barnes report and said all this to them two years ago. They ignored it. They flat out ignored it, refused to look at it. My own MP James Gray from Purton in Wiltshire, he threatened to throw me out of his surgery because I asked him to look at the evidence. That's how stuck in their ways. They wouldn't look at the evidence. So, I don't know. It's not going to be legal. You won't see thousands of people around the country getting cannabis on prescription. You will see people still getting busted and arrested for using cannabis. And how can that be just? Cannabis is cannabis. You know, so if someone's using cannabis for one reason, someone using it for another, but one's got a prescription, why should the other be persecuted just because they haven't got the luxury of a specialist clinician or a really severe illness? You know, in fact, seeing as it maintains homeostasis, it's preventative healthcare. We should be having cannabis to stop ourselves getting poorly. Right, I feel like I'm rambling. I don't know if I've covered it. If you've got any questions, please ask me. You know, agreeing to this definition means specialist doctors will be able to prescribe them to patients most in need later this autumn. Who determines which patients are most in need? What qualifies as most in need? It really gets at my goat, this does. Greater research based on therapeutic benefit to these products so we can maximise their potential as medicines. In other words, maximise their revenues. Because if they let people grow their own, as well as having all these prescribed variations, then that would really be maximising. Bear with me, I'm just looking through to make sure I've not missed anything, and then if I haven't, I'll leave you in peace. No, I think that's it. Yeah. I'll just finish on, you know, GPs can prescribe the most addictive, life-destroying drugs ever. They should be allowed to let people have cannabis if they want it. No difference between Bedrocan and ethically grown cannabis plants. Once it's tested and cleared, pesticides, heavy metals, all the same thing. Cannabis, exactly. Medical cannabis does not exist. I agree. It's all just cannabis. Yeah, we're putting medical in front of it. It's interesting, actually. What was I saying? That's it. Yeah. We've got recreational cannabis and medicinal cannabis, right? A complete misnomers. Neither one exists. Yes, some people might use it for fun because they're not severely ill, and some might use it because they're severely ill and not necessarily have any fun out of it. But ultimately, all cannabis is nutritional. And because it's nutritional, whether we smoke it, eat it, rub it into our skin, whatever, it is still nutritional. It regulates our endocannabinoid system. It's just another way of stigma across it and monopolising. It's exactly what it is. So I'm reading Jacob Gaz's comments, sorry, in case you're wondering what I'm rambling about. Yeah, medicinal cannabis is pharmaceuticals' way of hiding it, isn't it? Oh, I wish I could remember what I wrote now. Sorry, you don't know what I'm on about. So, that's Phil Monk from Within the Sign who says cannabis is maybe legal on prescription in certain forms for a very tiny few minority of people who may well be fortunate enough and lucky enough to get it. Anyone that believes this bullshit from the government that medicinal cannabis is now legal, you're literally being swallowed up hook, line and sinker because they're just trying to placate the masses. They're trying to make everyone stop fighting and stop campaigning. But you just see how many people are still suffering in 12 months on pharmaceutical crap when they could be on natural herbals. And then we'll see whether the fight's over or not. But for me personally, so long as anyone is ever prosecuted for cannabis for any reason, then the fight's never over. Because it should not be a crime ever to use cannabis for whatever reason. I love writing poetry on cannabis. I love carving on cannabis. I love fly fishing on cannabis. I love making love on cannabis. Yeah, it's not just about getting high. It is there for everything. And they're just trying to keep it in medicinal, recreational. Well, how about spiritual, creative, industrial, nutritional? Let's get the other factors out there, because there's not just a binary category of cannabis. Hello, Joe. And there's more aspects to cannabis. What are you saying there? Let's hope it's just a start. It will open the floodgates and the catalyst for changes we want to see. You're doing a great job. Thank you. I don't know what I'm doing. I just sit here bashing my phone most of the time. I don't do a lot. Just writing to people, reading and writing. But thank you, Joe. No, they don't want floodgates. Again, forgive me, everyone. You're being naive to be hopeful. You're being naive to be optimistic that this lying, thieving Tory cunt government, right, that have lied about cannabis for over 20 years are now going to suddenly let you have it. You fools. They're not. They're going to keep it for themselves and drip feed it back for a profit. That's what Tories do. They are capitalists. They are capitalising cannabis. That won't benefit the people. So the fight goes on. It's a long way over yet. I hate this moment. I never know if you can actually see me while I'm pressing these end buttons. It's like that silent moment on the news when no one wants to do anything. End then.